Hey, welcome to SI Now. It is Monday, January 9th, and I'm Maggie Gray. So happy to have you with us. Coming up, we'll break down the college football national championship game, and one high-profile assistant coach is in trouble with the law. But we begin with the NFL. The wild card games may not have kept us on the edge of our seats, but here's hoping the divisional round delivers some drama. For more on what we saw and what's to come, here are Super Bowl champion Chris Canty and our own Ryan Aselta. Hey, guys.
All right, thanks, Maggie. And wild card weekend is in the books, Chris. The ball games, not overly dramatic or close games, but they did provide us with plenty of storylines heading into the divisional round, and we're going to get to those. And we'll start on first down. Should the Cowboys fear a pack attack? And we're going to start with the most competitive game, which was Green Bay and New York, where the Packers knock off the Giants at Lambeau. Aaron Rodgers' amazing stretch just continues, and it sets up a showdown with the Cowboys. Chris, when you look at this game, this matchup, how concerned should Dallas be with this Green Bay team coming in, probably the hottest team in football right now?
Well, you have to be concerned with the Green Bay Packers because they've got the hottest quarterback in football in Aaron Rodgers, and you look at what they were able to do against the New York Giants. Now, the game was a little closer than that 38-13 final score, but you start seeing the efficiency of Aaron Rodgers, the ability to be able to buy time, his offensive line being able to protect for him, keep a firm pocket, just his ability to be able to find receivers, locate receivers downfield. Got to be impressed by it. But the Dallas Cowboys have the formula for success against the Green Bay Packers, and that's controlling time of possession, playing keep away from Aaron Rodgers and that Green Bay Packers offense. And you have to do that by being able to run the football, and the Cowboys can do that with Zeke Elliott behind that big physical offensive line.
One thing Dallas is going to have to do, it brings us to second down, is stop the Hail Mary. Are you kidding me?
That Hail Mary.
He did it again.
But now it's in the playbook, right? It's an official play in Mike McCarthy's playbook,
It really
right?
is. Let's get to it. His third touchdown on a Hail Mary in 13 months highlighted this win over the Giants out at Lambeau Field that ended the first half. Let's talk about the Hail Mary. It got a ton of tweets online, ton of reactions from guys. Deion Sanders saying, I really don't care who wins, but I want to slap every DB involved in that Hail Mary play. Michael Strahan, a former Giant, said it is unacceptable when you know it's coming. And there's the key, Chris. How do you defend against the Hail Mary from Aaron Rodgers, especially you know what's coming? Now, you were a defensive lineman. What is the game plan defensively when you know what's coming at the 50-yard bomb?
Well, a lot of teams want to sub in a wide receiver or somebody that can jump really, really high to be the jumper in the end zone to knock the pass down. Teams talk a lot about boxing out at the point of attack when the football is in the air. But to me, I want to go get the source of the pass. I want to come after the quarterback. Teams usually rush 3 or 4 defenders. I would come after them with 5, create one-on-ones along the offensive line, have my defensive linemen get one-on-one pass rush. You got to have somebody win in that situation. But putting pressure on Aaron Rodgers, not allowing him to set his feet so he can get the proper trajectory on that pass in order to give his receiver a chance in the end zone. I'm coming after the quarterback every single time. I don't want to leave it up to the guys on the back end.
And you said you're getting your hands up. As a defender, show us the arms that you're putting out right here against Aaron Rodgers. It's not easy to throw a 50-yard pass over something like this.
Not at all.
That's a good technical breakdown. But, Chris, as a lineman, aren't you looking back at your DBs saying, just knock the darn ball down?
Just knock the ball down or knock the receiver out of bounds. Even if you get a pass interference penalty, they got to kick a field goal because, listen, the half is over. There's no more time on the clock. You don't think the Green Bay Packers are going to go for it on a goal-to-goal situation. So that's the situation. That's the scenario. That's probably how I would play it. That would be frustrating as a teammate, one of those defensive backs for the New York Giants.
You mentioned box out. All these guys have played pickup hoops.
Everybody knows what box out
box your man out and you get a touch. Show me that wingspan again. How long is it? How long is that
thing?
You
can't throw a pass over.
I can't do anything over that. No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I guess easier said than done for the New York Giants. All right, moving on to third down. Will Partygate go down in infamy? I know you got a lot to say. The Giants, they controlled a good chunk of that first half, but had trouble punching it in the end zone. Odell Beckham Jr., 4 catches, 28 yards. He dropped 3 of 7 catchable balls, 11 targets in his playoff debut. Chris, do you think this trip to Miami, all the hoopla surrounding it, do you think it affected Odell, Sterling Shepard, Victor Cruz in this ballgame?
I don't think the trip to Miami had any bearing on the outcome of this game. I think the weather was more of a factor than anything else. When it's cold, the ball is harder, it's slicker, harder to catch, harder to get a handle on. Odell Beckham Jr. hasn't played in the game below freezing until yesterday in Lambeau Field, so you had to think that factored in to a couple of his drops. And, of course, the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers, they were able to build some momentum, and they rode that momentum the rest of the game.
What are these guys doing, though? Odell out there, Victor Cruz, no shirt at Lambeau Field before the game, taking selfies on the field. Can you explain what's going on in the heads of those two wide receivers?
No, I can't explain why they didn't have shirts on in Lambeau Field. But when you go out there and you try to make a statement by having your shirt off in pregame, you're worried about the cold weather. I think that was more of a factor in terms of some of the miscues that the Giants had on the offensive side of the ball than anything else.
Well, after the game, Odell dismissed any notion that there was a connection between his play and the trip. Coach Ben McAdoo also said there really was not an issue in this game.
There was a lot of talk early in the week, and then a lot of commentators today about the boat ride and what kind of message it sent and what kind of tone it set. Are you at all concerned about that, and did you think it had anything to do with particularly Odell's subpar effort?
That didn't have anything to do with the game.
In retrospect, were you disappointed that it did happen?
It didn't have anything to do with the ball game. We've talked about it. It's over.
Last thing on this, Chris. Odell, after the game, reportedly banged his head against the door to the locker room, punched a hole in the wall in the locker room. How long do you think this sticks with him, this distraction, the trip to Miami, and then the way he played? He laid a dud in his first playoff game.
Well, the trip to Cabo is still affecting Tony Romo. Dallas Cowboys fans are still talking about it. So I think this is going to be around for a while. It's a missed opportunity, but it's also a learning experience for Odell Beckham Jr. and for the rest of this young Giants football team. It gives them the experience. They can understand what it's like to play in the postseason. And so when you have that opportunity, it's only going to bode well for you moving down the road, as long as you've learned from the miscues that you had in this football game. And I trust that Ben McAdoo will make sure he sets the agenda in terms of these guys using it as a teaching moment.
So lessons learned. Put your shirt on at Lambeau Field, and the door and the wall are always going to win those fights.
Absolutely. You're not going to beat those guys.
All right, let's move on to fourth down, where forget flying high. The Seahawks, all of a sudden, they can run the football. They struggled all season, but the Seahawks rushed the ball down the throats of the Detroit Lions over the weekend to the tune of 161 yards from Thomas Rawls, who really had been hurt for most of the season. Now, how dangerous is Seattle if they can continue to run the football like this?
When you have the running game, you're going to open up more one-on-one opportunities for those receivers on the edge. That's how Seattle has to play if they're going to have a chance at beating Atlanta in the Georgia Dome.
Rematch of Week 6. That was a tight ball game, 26-24. The missed PI call at the end of that game and Julio Jones. So one of 4 really good matchups coming up this weekend in the divisional round. Maggie?
Of course, tonight is the night Alabama and Clemson will take the field in the College Football National Championship game. Tom Luginbill is an analyst for ESPN. He'll be on ESPNU's National Championship Countdown. That begins at 5 p.m. Eastern. Tom, thanks so much for the time. And let's break down some of the key factors in tonight's matchup, shall we? For as good as Alabama's defense is, I want to start with the offense. It's been suspect at times, and Steve Sarkisian now steps in to call plays for the departed Lane Kiffin. Is it a given that Sarkisian can seamlessly replace Kiffin in this way?
Well, I don't know if there's any guarantees to that, but I do know that if you go back and you look through both Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian's upbringing, how they were tutored and mentored, they're cut from the same cloth. I think if there's an X factor to look at in this scenario, is this is the first time that Steve Sarkisian has had this type of athlete under center at quarterback in this offense. I think people are probably putting a little too much stock into this change happening so abruptly. I think you'll see a smoother transition than maybe people are giving it credit for.
What do you expect early, though, from Clemson? Is there any way they can take advantage of Alabama's offense, which, let's be honest, does not really compare to what the team does defensively?
Well, I'll tell you, I think the one thing that's interesting about that very aspect of this game is that when the season starts to wear on as long as it has now, and you've got 13, 14, 15 weeks of data on a freshman quarterback in Jalen Hurts, if you're Brett Venables, defensive coordinator at Clemson, you now have a pretty good sample size to try and come up with ways to say, hey, listen, Jalen Hurts is out of his comfort zone when he's asked to do this. They have not been a successful team throwing the ball down the middle of the field or to the left side of the field. They have been a very right-minded, right-handed team when it comes to the passing game, particularly when moving the pocket. So if I'm Clemson, I'm trying to find ways to force Jalen Hurts to do things that he does not want to do and that are not comfortable for him.
Yeah, that's really interesting, especially when you talk about how teams really didn't have a lot of tape on Jalen Hurts, and perhaps that's one of the reasons he's been able to be so successful in this season. Teams have had plenty of tape on Deshaun Watson, but they still haven't been able to stop him. Even going back to last year's national title game, Nick Saban had a lot of trouble stopping Watson. What's going to be the key tonight? What changes and adjustments do you expect to see Bama make on the Heisman finalist?
Well, one of the things that Alabama has always prided themselves in being able to do is pressure the quarterback and then play man defense and be able to hold up because they've had superior personnel maybe in the secondary to be able to pressure quarterback. I really believe being able to control the line of scrimmage, if Alabama can do it with a four-man rush as opposed to pressure, will give Clemson offensively a different look from what they saw a year ago. And they really struggled handling Deshaun Watson on the ground because they did have to apply a lot of pressure just to try and slow the offense down.
That's a great point, really detailed, and we'll keep our eye out for it as the game kicks off later tonight. I want to ask about coaching because a win would be Nick Saban's 6th overall, 5th at Alabama. We know he's one of the greatest ever. Would a loss hurt his legacy in any way?
I would certainly hope not, and I would certainly hope that people recognize and have an appreciation for, number one, how hard it is to just win one game, let alone 13 or 15, or to play for a national championship or win a national championship. If Alabama were to lose this game, would it be stunning? I don't think so, because I think they're playing an opponent really that has the only quarterback in college football that can beat them. But it would, I think, send a message as well that there's always going to be evolution and there's going to be constant change. Nothing lasts forever. But I would hope an Alabama fan base or just a fan of college football will have a deep-rooted appreciation for how difficult it is to do what Nick Saban has done and the Alabama program has done, even if they don't win the game tonight.
Tom, that was almost poetic there. Hopefully the fan bases are hearing you, although they always are of a what have you done for me lately. We know that Alabama, they're a touchdown favorite in this game. Give us your pick. Who wins the national title?
I'm actually going to go against type here. I'm going to go with Clemson. And I just think that sometimes your number's up and you run into that one team that has that moment and that opportunity. Don't be surprised, though. I'm picking Clemson, but don't be surprised if the team whose quarterback has the most rush attempts and the most rush yards is the team that wins the game tonight.
We'd expect nothing less coming from a former quarterback that you are, Tom Luginbill. Thank you so much. Of course, ESPNU's National Championship Countdown begins today at 5 p.m. Eastern. That's where you'll be. It's the only live preview coverage happening on ESPN's family of networks during that time. Tom, thanks so much. Enjoy the game tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Let's turn back to the pros and say hello to former player agent and front office executive with the Green Bay Packers, Andrew Brandt. Andrew, after a slow start, Rodgers and company looked unstoppable against the Giants. The team has won 7 straight. They've turned the season around. So is the expectation now Super Bowl or bust in Green Bay?
I think so. And obviously, full disclosure, you see the helmet above my right shoulder here. It's this is as good a stretch of quarterback play, I think, as we've seen in our lifetimes, really. I don't want to make too much of it, but the way the Packers are playing, carried by Aaron Rodgers. I mean, how many players say we're going to run the table halfway through the season and do it on the strength of his shoulders? So it's happening, and I think that raises the expectations, yes, in Packerland. And frankly, what I'm hearing, Maggie, nationally, where there seems to be a large segment of people that think they'll just go into Dallas, who's the team of the year so far, and take care of business there. Obviously, it's a colossal matchup after just disposing of the Giants this weekend. But Aaron, of course, anything seems to be possible the way he's playing.
He's playing one of the best stretches of his career, if not the best. Now, as for the future of the Packers, there have been rumors that general manager Ted Thompson may be retiring soon. There have been rumors that Mike McCarthy is on the hot seat in the last few years. What types of changes could we see as a result of this season?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of going to give the warm take here that no one wants to hear, but I'm not sure we'll see any. I mean, I just think the continuity has been always a plus there, and I lived it for 9 years, and same people there as when I left 7 years ago, 8 years ago, Mike McCarthy and Ted Thompson. And you know the run of success that's been there, 8 straight seasons in the playoffs. Even when I was there, we only missed the playoffs one time in 9 years. I think it comes up, Maggie, because all these great people around the league were in our front office and maybe would look to come back, like a John Dorsey, like a John Schneider, Elliot Wolf's there. I mean, that's the reason these things come up. I can't see any reason why there would be a change.
Yeah, there's just a lot of talent, I guess, in the pipeline for the Green Bay Packers. Let's turn to the team that the Packers beat. That's the Giants. And Odell Beckham Jr.'s season, Andrew, it's been filled with drama. How did you deal with players like this? And what will be the conversations that the front office and the coaching staff have about Odell this offseason?
Well, here's the problem with this era. And again, I'm only a few years removed, but it was different. No social media. So we had players do whatever on their off days. I think players would routinely, especially this time of year, get away if they had a couple days off, go to warmer climates, but we never knew. Again, for me to weigh in, I don't have a problem with what players do on their off day because, but for social media, we don't know. But I don't even know this. If Odell was one of the people involved in putting it out on social media, that's a problem because then you're advertising it and you know you're going to get the questions about it no matter how you play. So it's a negative situation for the Giants because there is so much distraction from social media and from media talking about it.
Yeah, we'll have to see if there's any change, really, in terms of Odell Beckham and his status with the team after it wasn't just the trip to Miami. The situation with the kicking net, him allegedly punching a hole in the wall in Green Bay. There's been a lot of incidences that have added up. But I want to talk about coaches behaving badly because Steelers assistant coach Joey Porter was arrested on Sunday night after Pittsburgh's win. Andrew, Porter allegedly assaulted a doorman. If you were in the Steelers front office, how would you handle Porter? I mean, can he even be on the sidelines against Kansas City next weekend?
Well, you got to look into it. You put out the statement that we always see, which I translate to mean we're pissed, which is we're looking into the situation. And they'll find out more from Porter himself, hopefully. Listen, Maggie, you and I talk in the summer all the time. You don't want to get that phone call when players are off. I can imagine the Rooney's faces when they got the phone call last night about one of their coaches getting involved in this. Yeah, I mean, this is just like Beckham. I mean, the coaching staff management has to make a determination of what level this is going to be a distraction. They will try to make it a non-distraction. But you bring up the question, is he going to be on the sideline? And if he is, we know it's going to be talked about. If he is, we know the cameras will focus on him. Will that take away from the effort? So it's something that we'll just have to see where this goes. I think later in the week, we'll see from the Steelers what they want to do with him. Perhaps he is suspended for the game, but again, that detracts from the position that he coaches. Are there people in place that can take care of that?
Andrew, some news over the weekend from the college ranks. The Cal Bears fired their head coach, Sonny Dykes. Now, many are connecting Chip Kelly to that job opening, but do you still think Chip is drawing interest from NFL teams?
Yeah, he may be, Maggie, but not for a head coach. It just seems like we have a list out there of potential head coach candidates, which we've talked about before. I don't see Chip Kelly on any of those lists like he was last year. It's fired after 1 year. But I'm not ruling out a possibility of him becoming a coordinator somewhere or even an offensive coach. But you bring up the possibility, Cal, he's in the Bay Area, this opening there. Would he go back to Cal? It's very intriguing. So if he has an opportunity to do that, I'm sure he's got to take a good listen to that if it's for real.
Do you think that after going back to college, he would then have a return to the pro ranks at any point?
Yeah, I mean, you see what he does. If he goes back, he'll be in demand if Cal turns the program around. I mean, that's just the way it works. He'll be in demand, obviously, in bigger college settings and probably in the pros. The question is, would it be as a head coach or would it be as a coordinator? I think rehab's too strong a word, but Chip Kelly needs to sort of sit out the head coaching, whether it's at the pro level, whether it's head coach at college or coordinator, and I think he'll be back in a couple of years.
Yeah, with the reputation he has of being a bit of a control freak, I wonder how he would do as a coordinator. Andrew Brandt, we always appreciate your perspective. Thank you, and we'll catch up with you soon.
You got it, Maggie.
Let's change speeds now. Chris Evert is and always will be a tennis legend. I recently caught up with the 18-time Grand Slam singles champion in Orlando. It comes your way courtesy of Toyota. Let's go places. Chris, you're joining us today from the new national campus, the USTA's new home, and we're going to talk about that endeavor in just a moment. But I want to start with something that's not tennis at all. We saw you were watching Ronda Rousey's loss to Amanda Nunes, and you tweeted, "Hunger is everything." And we were curious, what did you mean by that? In your opinion, has Ronda lost her fire?
Well, that wasn't necessarily pointing my finger at her and saying you're not hungry. I was just meaning that I saw a tweet that said, I was answering a tweet that said the fire wasn't there in her fighting. And my response was, hunger is everything, because with hunger, you make things happen. And hunger is eagerness. If you're hungry, you just find some extra strength that normally isn't there elsewhere. So that's the only thing I meant. And I question Serena sometimes on her hunger, because, it's at one point when you've done it, you've been number one, you've conquered, you've reached your goal, then it's harder to find that hunger, and that was my reaction. That was all.
You mentioned Serena and whether she still has that hunger and desire. You've said in the past that Serena should be considered the greatest women's tennis player of all time. She's tied with Steffi Graf with 22 major titles, 2 away from Margaret Court's 24 titles. Are those milestones going to keep her hungry, or has she already become the greatest tennis player of all time, so the milestones just don't mean as much?
I think that Serena struggled with that the last few years, is the hunger. When I say hunger, for a Grand Slam, you've got to have it every day for 2 weeks. And I think when she's won so much, she's been on the tour for 20 years, she's trained so hard, I think after a while, you get a little burned out mentally and as well as emotionally, and it's not fresh anymore. I think Serena feels that way. I don't think she admits it, because then it gives her opponents an edge, but I feel like she's struggling a little bit with that now.
Serena is now 35 years old. Do you think she's going to get those milestones? Is it inevitable?
I think she definitely has one more in her. I mean, even 2. I think she has 1 or 2 more Grand Slams in her. I have no doubt about that. I mean, the ability is there. We know that. The power is there. But like I said, the hunger has to be there. The focus has to be there, and she has to be healthy. But, I definitely think it's very possible. I wouldn't count her out at this point.
You mentioned that you always kept that hunger and that drive. You never reveled in your wins. You even questioned whether that was healthy or not. So when you look at today's female athletes, do you see anyone that reminds you of yourself at that time?
No. I'm trying to think. It's just, the game is so different now. I mean, the game in my day, you had to be mentally tough because you didn't have the power. And it was based mostly on placement and precision and consistency. And now it's about brute strength and power and shorter rallies. And I really don't think the players are as mentally tough now as they were in my day, because first of all, we didn't have a lot of coaching. I mean, we just figured it out ourselves. Nowadays, there is a lot of coaching, and there's so many opportunities and resources for these players, but sometimes I think they tend to not think for themselves.
I mentioned that you are at the new national campus at Lake Nona in Orlando, Florida. How is the approach of this school unique to other tennis academies?
Well, first of all, when you walk in, there's 100 courts. So I think this facility, this campus is going to help players on every level. I mean, it's not only professional tennis players coming in to train hard, but it's also recreational players, you know, young kids, college players, players with disabilities, and everybody will take advantage of the great resources that this facility has.
I'd love to know your number one tip for parents who have a young tennis player with big dreams of playing in college or maybe even going pro. What do you want to say to them?
Don't put pressure on them, please. Please don't put pressure or expectations on them. Let them put their own pressure on themselves. Just be a parent, just be a mother and a father, and support them and guide them and take them away from tennis when they need a break and rely more on the coaches for the tennis part.
Chris Evert, thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it. Always great to catch up with Chrissy Evert, and that's going to do it for this Monday episode of SI Now. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern when I'll be joined by former NBA head coach George Karl. He's written a new tell-all book. You will not want to miss that interview. Until then, stick with SI.com for all the latest news, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SI Now Live. Enjoy your Monday. We'll see you tomorrow.